Hi everybody, welcome to Dynamo Sword Channel. I'm David, and today on Dynamo Sword Channel I will be reviewing the Windlass and Royal Armouries 15th century two-handed sword. So how does this sword fare amongst other great swords in its price range, as well as hold up to the historical original it's based on? Well, stay tuned, we'll find out. This sword is what I would classify as a Type 18B in the oakshot typology. Now, the Type 18B were unique as they were quintessentially the longsword variant of the Type 18. Now, the Type 18 stood out as the quintessential cut and thrust blade design of the medieval period, featuring a moderately tapering blade with either a diamond or hollow ground cross section, ending in a acute tip. Now, Type 18 blades tended to be rather long, with blade lengths averaging between 34 and 40 inches, with some even reaching greatsword lengths at around 50 inches, as seen with this example. They also featured a rather long and slender grip, ranging between 8 and 13 inches on average. This sword's hilt configuration sort of classifies it into, two different sword families. The first, primarily due to it being a Castilian sword of the Castilian find, this sword would fit into the Castilian Family J. Now, Family J was a sword family exclusive to the unique hilt configuration found on the Castilian group of swords. Family J consisted of, fishtail or sometimes scent stopper pommels of type V and T, with the prominent guard style of 11, or can even be other more simpler straight styles such as 1 or 2. Though this sword primarily fits in the Family J due to its finding place, it also, due to its longsword or two-handed proportions, could also fit into the Family E of oakshot's sword families. Family E was defined by having a scent stopper shaped pommel of type T and long thin guards of styles 1, 2, 4, 7, or 8. Now, this sword could technically fall into this family due to having the shorter triangular type T2 pommel, and of course the standard long straight guard seen in that family. Now, being a 15th century cut and thrust style blade, this sword is what would fall into group 2 of oakshot's sword groups. This sword is a direct replica of a 15th century sword found in the famed Castilian find, a group of over 80 swords said to have been found in and excavated around the River Dogon, near the town of Castilian La Bastille in 1976. Close to where the Battle of Castilian, the last battle of the 100 Years' War, was fought in 1453. Now, it is presumed to be of English origin and is unique as it is one of only 4 of those 80 swords that are of two-handed or great sword proportion. Now, as is in its title, the sword is in the collection of the Royal Armouries in Leeds and has been in their possession since its purchase in 1978, after its initial purchase in 1977 at the Christie's auction of the Castilian find. It is one of 6 swords featured in a collection of direct replicas made by Windlass Steelcrafts for the Royal Armouries. Now, in closing, this is a very large and attractive sword that does show how varied the blade profiles could be on these larger two-handed great swords of the later medieval and Renaissance periods. Now, this sword also shows similarity and could be part of the family of English-style great swords, normally dubbed the Tudor swords, mainly due to their popularity during the time of Henry VII during the War of the Roses, and was also later featured in the grand tournament known as the Field of the Cloth of Gold, hosted by his son Henry VIII. Now let's look at the overall statistics of this sword. So its overall length is a massive 58 inches. It has a weight of 4.5 pounds with a point of balance right at about 5 inches from the hilt. Now the center of percussion is right at about 26 inches from the hilt. And the class of sword, as mentioned, is what would be known as a two-handed great sword. Now the blade length is, again, a long 45 inches. Its base blade width is 1 3/4 inches, and that tapers to about 1.25 inches at the midsection, finally finishing at about 1/2 inch at the tip. Now the material is a 1080 high carbon steel, and it has a nice and clean satin finish. Now the cross section, as can be seen, is a diamond cross section, and as we discussed earlier, the blade type is what would be known as an 18B in the oakshot typology. Now the guard's total length is 11 inches. The quillion dimensions, and they're kind of unique since they're fully rounded, so I'll give more of a circumference, is 1.5 inches at the lobes, and then that widens to 2 inches where it kind of squares at the handle. Now the material is a mild steel with a nice satin finish, and the style is what would be known as a style 11 in the oakshot typology. Moving on to the handle. The handle's total length is 9.5 inches. The circumference at the base is 3 3/4 inches, and that tapers down to 3 1/4 inches at the pommel. The handle material is wood, and the grip material is a textured black leather. Now, the pommel's total length is 2 7/8 inches. The pommel width is 2 1/4 inches, and that weighs down to about 1 inch at the grip. Now, the thickness of the pommel is 3/4 of an inch at the top, and that tapers down to 1/2 inch at the grip. The general circumference is 6 1/4 inches at the top, and that weighs down to 3 inches at the grip. And the material, like the guard, is a mild steel with a matching satin polish. Now the construction of this sword is peened. And again, as I mentioned earlier, in sword families, the type of pommel is what would be known as a Type T2 in the oakshot typology. Now, even though this is a large two-handed sword, like all swords in the Royal Armouries collection, this sword does feature a scabbard. Now, much like the other scabbards I reviewed of the Royal Armouries swords in my collection, it is a nice wood core scabbard with a nice finish and shape that is wrapped in a nice black leather with stitching on the back, and features an upper rain guard as well as a brass shape with this unique club cutout shape on it. Now, as far as its fit, it does fit this sword very well. There is, kind of very little rattle, and, for the most part, it's not a full tight friction fit, but it does hold the sword decently well. And at least when it's upright, there's not a lot of movement or really having, to shake it to really get it to move. So it is tight, but it's not upside down tight, which might be a con to some. But with such a large sword and heavy hilt, it's kind of to be expected. But overall, it does fit the sword flush and nice. And again, doesn't move around when, kind of having it upright. In my opinion, it's a big upgrade over the standard windlass leather scabbards. And it seems that through influence of these Royal Armoury swords, that Windlass is definitely stepping up their scabbard game, offering wood core leather wrapped scabbards, which, actually, as of writing this and doing this video, they have released new limited, special editions of classic windlass swords that do feature similar grip wraps to the Royal Armouries, as well as the wood core scabbards, to kind of give those older windlass swords a much needed upgrade in comparison to other manufacturers and vendors. This sword, as mentioned in the historical section, is part of a collaboration between the Royal Armories of Leeds, England, and Windlass Steelcrafts of India to replicate specific swords in the Royal Armories collection. Now, each sword is built based on the exact statistics of the historical original it is based on. It is then inspected and certified by curators from the Royal Armories, as well as given a certificate of authenticity from the current master of the armories. Each prototype was also sent to Matt Easton of Scala Gladiatoria for review to ensure the sword's fit and finish and handling were up to the expectations of a historical European martial arts practitioner before the final inspection by the curators of the Royal Armories. Now, each sword comes in a nicely designed and sturdy display box that also includes the certificate of authenticity, a tin of polishing wax, and a polishing cloth for cleaning the blade and hilt. Now, this sword overall has a nice fit and finish that accentuates its design and function regarding itself as a two-handed great sword. Now, the blade is excellently forged and the lines are very crisp and even. It features a more flattened diamond cross section, which is long and acutely tapering. A key characteristic of both the Type XVIIIb as well as the English Tudor Great Sword. Now, this blade's purpose is primarily to thrust though still retains enough body to offer a serviceable cutting section. Now, unlike other great swords of German, Italian, or Scottish origin, this sword's tapering blade and acute tip make it unique amongst other great swords whose profiles were definitely more designed with cutting in mind. This sword is also shorter in overall length to your usual two-handed great sword, placing it sort of in the middle between a traditional longsword and, of course, the more traditional great sword, making it similar to, but still kind of more of a larger version of the later period war swords and bastard swords of the 15th and 16th centuries, such as the blade type 17 and 20A, or other longsword proportioned 18B types. Now, moving to the hilt, the guard is very well cast and is a near exact replica of the original. Now, as mentioned earlier, it is of the Style 11 guard style in the Oakshott typology. Now, the Style 11 was defined as having a long, straight quillion with, more of a rounded section, and then, of course, broad lobed terminals at the end. This one is also unique as it features a central inclusion with a very unique kind of clubbed design and further like little etchings at the top of kind of diamond shape, giving it almost kind of like a fish tail and kind of fish scale look to it. Now, it is seated very well to the blade, and there is very little gap. The shoulders also rest nice and even and are very flush to the blade. Overall, it is a very well made and attractive guard. Now, the handle and grip are very well made too, and this, I feel, is one of the few liberties taken with the sword's design, as of course the original was lacking its full grip, with only portions of the original wood grip remaining. Now, the new grip features a wood core that is more rhomboid in shape with a prominent central ridge. It is finished with an overwrap of black textured leather without any risers. Now, overall, as far as its grip, it is very well shaped and feels really nice in the hand, and is one of my favorite features of the sword, as it is so well shaped and comfortable to the grip. And personally, out of the three Royal Armory swords that I own and that I've reviewed, this is definitely my favorite grip due to the shape. Moving on to the pommel. The pommel is definitely a highlight of this sword, as it features a unique design of the more generic Type T2. Now, this one features a nice upper scalloped design and additional designs, as well as the central ridge. So very unique, very attractive. Now, Type T2 was a subtype of the standard Type T pommel, featuring a more triangular body with a center ridge that slightly tapers towards the grip. Now, this pommel features a unique design with, of course, as I mentioned, that upper scalloping and the engraving lines, giving it a very attractive and unique design. Now, it is peened at the end, and You know, the peen is nicely finished, though it could be blended a little better in my opinion. But it is flush and tightly fitted to the grip, so it is well finished and there is no real drag or tear feeling from the pommel, as it is nice and flush. Overall, I would say, in my opinion, this is a very excellently crafted sword, and the fit and finish on my model is very top notch. It is, you know, in my personal opinion, a very beautiful sword, and again, a prime example of the 15th century two-handed sword it is replicating. Now, regarding the handling, this sword probably isn't really for everyone, as it being a two-handed greatsword, it is rather large and cumbersome in comparison to the handling of a more traditional arming or long sword. But, you know, if you are a fan of two-handed greatswords, you will be in for a treat due to this sword's unique tapering profile, and for, you know, its size, it is very light and well balanced. It is in fact balanced and light enough to be handled, you know, one-handed, though when gripped properly two-handed, it is very fast and responsive, allowing for both long, sweeping cuts, but also focused and accurate thrusts from the distance and reach its length allows. Now, like all swords of the Royal Armouries collaboration, it is made of 1080 high carbon steel and is finished and heat treated to near perfection. The hilt is solid and flush, and the blade shows proper flexibility, you know, adding to, you know, the signs of its proper heat treatment. You know, when it comes to it being a, you know, a cutting sword, or, you know, something that you would practice cutting with, unfortunately, all swords in the Royal Armouries collaboration come unsharpened. And so, you know, that is a detriment. But, you know, if you do want to do cutting sessions with this sword or with other swords in the Royal Armouries collection, you know, the caveat is you will have to either sharpen them yourselves or have it sharpened by an outside source, as museum replicas will not sharpen them. So if you get them from a third party that does offer a sharpening, for example, Cult of Athena, they will sharpen them, but just be aware sharpening normally voids any, you know, warranty or, you know, any chance of, if, you know, it does have a you know, a finish issue of getting it replaced or returned. Aside from that, in closing, you know, I got to say, I've always kind of wanted this sword, as, you know, some of you enthusiasts, you know, older enthusiasts might know, you know, before this model was released, I was constantly looking at and contemplating buying the earlier released English two-handed sword by Windlass. Now, this sword came out, you know, I want to say around the early 2010s, later 2000s, and was the predecessor to this one. The major difference is that it featured a blue color theme in the scabbard and grip, and of course, due to it being a more budget windlass sword, had definitely less detail in the fit and finish. Kind of in a sense, I guess you could say that I am kind of thankful or appreciative I didn't acquire that original version, as I definitely feel this Royal Armouries version is superior overall, and probably never would have purchased, you know, this model had I purchased the original before it. But of course, there are or is a significant price difference, as the original sold for under 400 and this one sells, just under 700. Now, personally, I got to say I am very happy with this sword, and I am very happy with, this specific model I received. It is not only a very impressive and user-friendly two-handed sword, but also a replica of a very popular and highly sought-after sword that has been featured in the Royal Armouries collection for, nearly 50 years. Now, I highly recommend this sword for anyone looking for a thrust-oriented, two-handed greatsword of the unique Tudor style, and feel it is one of the best available on the market today. Well, I think that's going to be it for this review. I hope you enjoyed viewing it and it helps with your opinion on this sword. Be sure to like and subscribe, as well as look out for future content from Dynamo Sword Channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.